Hi, everyone. So we've come to the main event of all the events leading up to the Civil War. And this main event is the election of 1860. You know this election is the election that Abraham Lincoln won. But let's dig into the details a little bit and explain why exactly the South felt so cheated in this election and why they felt justified in leaving the country and becoming their own separate nation. Now, what you have here as far as candidates go is, of course, you have Abraham Lincoln here. Now, I do want you to know he tried to be very careful about his policies, his campaign platform, and all he said is, I will prohibit slavery from going into the Western territories. I just want to allow it where it exists, contain it to where it exists, and that's all. Just do not let slavery expand. He wasn't this big time anti slavery candidate where he's going to say he's going to end slavery today. That was not Abraham Lincoln's stance at all. All he said is, we're going to leave slavery where it is. We just want to stop its expansion. I want to go to the Northern Democratic candidate next. This guy right here, Stephen A. Douglas. He was a political powerhouse, a supernova. He's somebody that was the biggest politician on the stage at this time as far as the Democratic Party goes. But by this time, his idea of popular sovereignty was falling from grace throughout the nation. And Abraham Lincoln had really torn holes through it to say, even if people voted for freedom, slavery could go anywhere. Slavery could technically come to Pennsylvania. Slavery could come to New York, to Massachusetts, because a slave could be taken anywhere in the United States, and that slave would still be a slave. They'd be a slave always. And so, this guy's policies, despite the fact that he had some power and some strength here, his policies, they were meaningless. And so he really didn't have that great of a chance, despite the fact that he was pretty prominent within Congress. Now, I'm going to go to the next guy here that had some significance, and that is the Southern Democratic candidate by the name of John C. Breckinridge. This guy was the vice president of the country. And if you know anything about the early history of the United States, you'll know that a lot of the vice presidents would rise to the position of president. They were already executive, and people really had trust in them. And so this guy by himself, by his position, had some standing and could have been the president, could have won this election. The only problem is his campaign platform was solely a Southern campaign platform. It cared little about the North. His entire thing was that he was going to support slavery in the territories and support slavery throughout the nation. And he specifically even wanted to get a constitutional amendment protecting slavery. And he wanted to make sure that slavery would exist throughout the United States forever. Now, that's John C. Breckinridge, but he's just a Southern candidate. The last one here, I'm not going to talk too much about. That's John Bell. This guy just said, "Hey, we're going to avoid the slavery issue. We're going to keep the country united under any circumstances. So whatever we got to do." He's part of this constitutional union party. We are going to come up with a compromise no matter what and keep the country together. But this guy, he didn't really have that much of a shot, so I'm not going to say too much about that. Now, the thing I need to say is this, and it's a lesson that every single party throughout all of history needs to learn here. The same thing is learned also by the Republican Party in 1912 when Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft both ran against each other, and neither one of them won. You can't run two people of similar beliefs, basically of the same party. You can't run them in the same election. And here, the Democratic Party split up in 1860. They ran a Northern Democratic candidate. They also ran a Southern Democratic candidate, and they ended up splitting the Democratic vote, allowing this political unknown, this guy that was born in a cabin in Kentucky, this guy has served two total years within the United States House of Representatives. This gentleman, Abraham Lincoln, who should probably have never been president in our country's history, not to say he was a bad one because I really respect him and think he was a great president, but with his experience level, he should not have become the president. He should not have won this election. But because the Democrats split their vote, it allowed Abraham Lincoln to win. Now, I want to point this out as well. Abraham Lincoln, in his campaign, he did not care to win Southern votes. He did not need to win Southern votes. Why? Because the North has double the population of the South. And so they really have double the electoral college votes. All Lincoln had to do was win the North and he's got it, and he'd win. So in this election, if you take a look at the numbers here, you take a look at the overall election map, you could see Lincoln's in red, and he won the entire North. He won the free states. Now, if you take a look at the popular vote here, it's actually kind of close. But if you take a look at the Electoral College vote, you can see that Lincoln easily won a majority Electoral College and really easily won this election. So all Lincoln needed to do was win the North, and he was going to win. He was going to take it. Now, the big other lesson here is that the South felt completely cheated by what Lincoln did. I understand why. Because his name was not even on the ballot in 9 of the 15 Southern slave states. His campaign and he knew it was worthless to bother to try to get the signatures in the South to get his name on a ballot. A candidate needs to get a significant amount of signatures in order to even appear on the ballot. Like if I wanted to run for president this year, I'd have to get thousands of signatures to get on a ballot. He knew it wasn't worth it, so he didn't bother. So 9 out of the 15 slave states, his name wasn't even on the ballot. It's almost like he didn't even care to be their president. And also, when the votes came in, he won a whopping 2 of the entire 996. I had a misspelling there. So 996 southern counties. He only won 2 of all the southern counties. Sorry for the misspelling, but you get the idea here. Now, what comes next, since the South feels cheated, is that the South is going to secede even before Lincoln takes the seat of the president. He's not going to become president until March 4th, but 7 states, the states in blue here, secede. They're not going to let him be president, be their president. They're not going to let him make any movement upon slavery. They want out before Lincoln even steps into office. And so they jet out before that day comes, and then 4 states would follow later. But this is the original Confederacy right here. 7 states left because they're afraid of what Lincoln was going to do.